Hi everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about How the World Ran Out of Everything by Peter S. Goodman. Do you all remember that lame meme that for some reason got viral about the evergreen container ship that got stuck in Suez Canal? If any meme captured how much we collectively lose our mind during the pandemic, that meme had to be the turning point in history. We can point at where the world started to turn into our current state of brain rot. Oh, something is stuck. Ho ho, let's replace it with a picture of the ship. Ho ho, funny. God. Eventually, the meme died in only a couple of days because it's such a desperate internet trend that I think most of us want to move on as quickly as possible. But what a lot of people miss is that one ship that got stuck halted the already slowing global supply chain that is already so slow because of the pandemic. The book mentioned that the ship is larger than the Hague of 4 Statue of Liberty, which is how you know that an American definitely wrote the book. I'm surprised he didn't use banana scale. And just that one ship alone contains so many things from products like clothes, beverages, toys, furniture, to even electronic parts and chemical used to make other products ranging from paint to medicine. And that's just that one ship that is blocking all the other ships. One ship from Hong Kong that got held is trying to deliver 4 million kilograms of animal food for cows that can feed about 20,000 of them for a week. There are 5 other ships containing bottled water, another ship from Singapore containing key chemical to manufacture synthetic fabric and plastic bottles, and many more ships each containing millions of kilograms of every materials that are supposed to be somewhere else. While most people doesn't feel the effect of this blockage, and a few only go as far as not being able to buy some unnecessary products like new clothing they cannot even wear to go out during the pandemic, but there were some people that ran out of necessary products like life-saving medical device and toothpaste. Some hospitals even have to resort to using subpar alternative medicine because a few ingredients were missing. It's also why a lot of frontline medical workers at that time had to help treat the pandemic with lack of self-protective equipment. A condition made worse by people hoarding the equipment at the start of the pandemic. Some assholes were even trying to resell them while key ingredients were stuck in the traffic jam in the Suez Canal. The author has been working as an economic journalist for decades since 1989, where he started in Japan Times that is located in Kyoto. Then he freelanced for multiple news outlets in Southeast Asia before he finally went back to US and settled there. His family is quite lucky to be one of the few people who can still have job security at that time working from home. There was just one problem. His wife was due to give birth early April 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. The birth itself is no problem, but after getting out, there's just no way to get any hand sanitizer, which is important at that time, especially with a newborn with weaker immune system. She was about to make it herself, but even the material to make them is already out of sale. All of this highlights the weak link in our supply chains in the economic system, from railroads to trucking firms to warehouses. Major companies have long treated their workers as their personal cost efficiency projects, while shareholders get most of the profit despite doing the least in the company. And thanks to the author's unique experience at working and covering the economic moments from the east to the west, he got to see the effect of this cost cutting that major companies has done to the supply chain. In the book, we follow Hagen Walker. Since he was young, he wanted to create his own business. At first, he dreamed of creating a startup company in his hometown to also help out the local company and create more job opportunity there. But eventually, just like most businesses, he'll also have to rely on China to manufacture his products. Everything is made in China, not just because it's the cheapest there, even though that is often the case, but because not only are there an abundance of raw material there, but there is also an abundance of people with the know-how to manufacture everything. You don't need to make the extra effort of finding or having to train people for the skill they need to have to make things there. Walker made his startup company Glow right after he finished his college using the funds he secured from his small computer repair business he launched in high school. His initial business started from making a novelty item that became the basis of his startup company, an ice cube that can glow when in water. The idea is that he will sell them in bars so bartenders will realize when the customers were ready to refill because the ice cube light will turn off when the customer finish their drink. He and his early partners secured some fundings and bought some 3D printings with that money, which won him an award in a competition that earned him more funds for the company. He managed to sell the glow cubes to the local bars near the company as planned, and he even got some unexpected buyer. A mother with an autistic kid who had sensory overload when he's taking his bed seems to have calmed down once a glow cube was put into the bed, calming and soothing him. He eventually partnered with Anna Barker, another graduate from his city that saw some potential in the incident. In 2016, when Donald J. Trump had another of his episodic meltdown, he had a trade war with China. making it seem like China is the one taking over America's job, forgetting that America is the one that put the jobs there. Elon Musk and Tim Apple even did those. Honda, General Motors, and even Volkswagen, who had some free laborers from the Nazi camp, went to China to manufacture the materials for their products. It's because the country has managed to build themselves up long after British tried to sell them opium and Japan attacked them, and long after the regime of Mao Zedong that killed more than 38 million people. China has ramped up its economic power, and then they had a landmark event that accelerated their growth even more by joining the World Trade Organization in 2001, helped by President Bill Clinton because at that time, America was looking for the opportunity for cheap labors. A chain of events that will eventually make Hagen Walker Group go to China to find help in manufacturing their Sesame product brand deal products. Nowadays, most things are made in China. 80% of air conditioner, about 70% of all mobile phone, and most shoes, even Nike and Adidas are manufactured in China. And because the Chinese press is heavily censored, so much so that the people of China had to go to protest showing empty white paper, and just a few months ago, a university student had to report harassment while showing their student ID. This heavy censor enabled them to hide a lot of their wrongdoings in the manufacturing process. Walmart, for example, a company that is so known for selling cheap products that some famous influencer scammers used to be known for just crying Walmart to influence people. They have a center in China where factory owners line up trying to get them the cheapest price to manufacture their products. And Walmart's standard keep changing, demanding for lower and lower price. And if the current factory says they cannot give them the price Walmart demanded, then there are other multiple factory owners lined up waiting to take the new much worse offer. You can imagine the living condition of the worker and the pay they got for such an environment. And America has been taking advantage of this environment for decades. Why Walker couldn't find a factory to produce his toys in America is not just because of how cheap he can make them in China, but because so much things are made in China for so long that the skill to make them are all in China. No one can manufacture the things that Walker needed for his products in America. He has tried multiple factories in trying to manufacture his glowing ice cube products because there's mixed results from those factories, and for the collab with Sesame Street, he can have something like a delay in product because it's a brand collaboration. He met with the founder and CEO of Platform 88, a manufacturing company owned by Jacob Rodman that seems promising, but what they didn't know is that a hurdle called COVID-19 is about to hit the global market. Cars needed 30,000 different parts manufactured around the globe before it was sent overseas to be assembled. A naval phone needed parts from 43 different countries, which is then sent to be assembled in China and Taiwan. Nintendo Switch was made in a factory in Vietnam, but some of its parts are made in China. Heck, even simple products like disposable diapers need 50 different materials, and if any of these parts are missing, production is halted. Not a single car or phone or Nintendo Switch or diaper can be made. And if such big company have that problem, then Walker stand no chance during the pandemic. This problem with the chain of production has been perceived by the guy who invented the system itself, Henry Ford, a man that belongs to the past. His assembly line and just-in-time production fuel economic growth for a time. Just-in-time itself will be developed mostly by Toyota under its owner Taichi Ohno. Using what he read on Ford's work and his own experience with handling cows, he eventually made a tightly controlled production method. His most famous quote is, "There is no waste in business more than overproduction." Researchers from US will study his method, coin it lean marketing, and will eventually wrote the machine that changed the world. But of course, it eventually became a telephone game where they butchered it further by dissolving all the humanity that is needed to run the company for long term into what it became in the modern world. Note Alike, for example, that works for McKinsey & Company, a business consultant company that will eventually become a blueprint for many dystopian corporations. He read the machine that changed the world and became obsessed with lean marketing in the worst way possible. He only cares for the bottom line, so he immediately consults companies to reduce their warehouse costs, so no warehouse, cutting their workers and downgrade full-time jobs into flexible positions. It makes them become part-timer where their employment is based on the whims of their bosses. It's also where unpaid intern eventually comes from. Lean marketing also means most workers can be dispatched within only a few hours notice, allowing the company to respond to clients and customers on the same day, all day, every day. Going lean under McKinsey means that control and economic security has changed hands from ordinary workers to executive ranks. And because every workforce are busy all day long, companies under this rule become inflexible and their ability to innovate were fatally constrained. They were slow and bumbling, bureaucratic and ponderous. They focus so much into short-term gain that usually they have no progress that is for longevity. To make it worse for the workers, it also made them easier to dismiss at any moment notice without having to worry about severance payment or union grievance. Everything becomes for the sake of increasing the bottom line for the sole benefit of the shareholders. But since it is all focused solely on short-term gain, as expected, there are so much problem in the long term. The book listed a lot of companies that fell off after they took the McKinsey advice, and many of the current crises, including the ongoing global chip shortage, is mostly because of this lean marketing. I said mostly because it's not the only thing. There's the effort of reducing the use of plastic that has gone too far. I mean, a few months ago, microplastic was found stuck to a cancer cell. It's truly everywhere. Then there's also the problem of still using the container system made by Malcolm McLean, whose motto is, "I don't have much nostalgia for anything that loses money," which is why he tried to not pay a lot of dock workers that handle his containers and fight against unionizing. Then, because of the non-union fight that has gone on since before Henry Ford and Malcolm McLean, the system is stressed further. Productivity has expanded by more than 60% from 1979 to 2020, but worker compensation only increased by less than 18%, making it impossible for some jobs to be long-term because it makes sure that people who work there will stay poor. So there's almost no experienced worker in the environment that can handle unexpected surprises. The same is true on land. Once Walker finally got his shipment on materials, there is no trucks available to deliver his items from the dock to his place because it's almost one of the supply chain system that has been fucked after so many cost cutting. Truck drivers are notorious for having really bad working hours that they had to pee in a bottle because of a few seconds or minutes wasted to go to the toilet might mean delayed delivery that will have their payment docked or worse, fired from the job. And things got more difficult for Walkers because he had to find available trucks at the same time as available railroad workers, both chain supply that has also been damaged to the point of fragility by cost cutting. The book is really well written. Some of the segue between topics can be awkward, but it never made it hard to read and follow the story. It helps that the pacing is really good, it has history lesson, economy lesson, but blend it well with concurrent popular news so it's easier to follow. Hagen Welker become a kind of protagonist in this book where everything that could go wrong with the current system, even if you're trying to do things the right way, went wrong. I honestly dreaded reading this book because of how interesting can a book about history of the world of economy be. But I'm glad that the author proved to be more than capable of making it into an interesting story to read. The book shows that everything that we got with a cheap price often comes with additional price tag that in long term will be paid dearly. It's the same with the book To Die For that shows the cost of cheap clothing manufacturing. Cost cutting eventually costs more than just money, can cost us our livelihood. There's not really a clean solution for a lot of the problem mentioned in the book, which the book kinda made clear, because most of it will need some very rich people like the people who work in McKinsey and their client to grow some conscience and some moral backbone. People like Bungie CEO who bought 20 cars worth $2.3 million to be parked indefinitely in his house while firing more than 200 of his employees. We'll need more people like the late Satoru Iwata who cut half his own waste so he can keep the developers in Nintendo when Wii U sales almost broke the company, because if we reduce the number of people for short-term financial result, employee morale will decrease. Laying off a group of employees will not help to strengthen Nintendo's business in the long run. And his word has been proven to be true with Nintendo Switch becoming their best console yet despite also struggling with production during the pandemic. But it's not like we're truly powerless. Factories now not just relied solely on China. There are now various factories in Cambodia, Vietnam and other Southeast Asia countries that reduce a ton of clog up in productions. People understanding of unions also got a ton better compared to the past. So it's easier to be in one or create one in a lot of places, which means those that don't have them lose in a competition of being a workplace. Even Amazon have them, which is at least a start. There are also tons of ways to purchase items you like from the people who made them through trusted sources like local sources, even if a lot of them are more expensive because they cannot really scale up their production to make them cheaper, especially if it's handmade products. But there are ways. It's not the end until everyone just decides to give up without fight. And for now, I hope the book will at least help educate people on the problem that we are currently facing. I give this a 4. What do you think? Let me know if I miss anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.